we've been working with Metametrics to identify Oklahoma author texts that also can be associated with this website. So in the law, it identifies that any first, second, or third grader who demonstrates proficiency in reading at the third grade level through a State Board of Education approved reading instrument shall not be subject to the retention guidelines. So we've had some questions about what does it mean to demonstrate proficiency at the third grade level. And the vendors have identified those numbers, and they're listed on the web page along with the 13 instruments. So when you pull up on the web page and you see the 13 different instruments, I believe it's the third column on that sheet, it identifies what is proficient. So you need to look at that ahead of time because there was some misunderstanding with STAR, and some people were identifying kids were third grade level proficient by using beginning of the year scores. Well, beginning of the year benchmark in third grade is not what's intended in the law. In the law, if you look at some additional language that's later in the law, and I wrote it down so that I could make sure I shared it with you. If you look at House Bill 3218 on page 24, subsection B, it talks about end of each school year and year-end reading skills. And so you need to make sure, starting at the beginning of school, that you don't send out that a student has reached third grade reading proficiency unless they've achieved that end of year performance level.
I have a question about that.
And on STAR, that's 393, yes.
So you're saying if they made green at the beginning of the year score, see that's
And that's the way we understood it too.
The vendor, STAR vendor, it was,
right.
it was
So we are not to count that. It cannot be at the beginning of the year that they start out third grade, 3.0, they're on level, so you cannot count that, is that what you're saying?
it's end of year, that's the intent.
I know, but we kinda had.
The vendor apparently miscommunicated some information last year.
We did go by
And
that.
we allowed that because we did not become aware of that miscommunication until mid-year. We didn't want for districts, we didn't want to come in with a hammer and say, hey, you've sent that letter home, now you have to send something that revokes it from the parent. So last year was kind of like a time to get accustomed to using that, and we didn't have districts go back and change that. And we hope,
Definitely not for this school
but
year.
this upcoming school year, it needs to be end of year support performance.
Did you say that skill, repeat it one more time, end of the year,
End of year performance.
did you say that skill score be a 393?
Yes, it's on the website. If you go to the website, let's see if I can go out to the website, I can show you where it is.
I didn't do it as well.
Yeah, and then I did talk to her and she said, don't worry about it. So, but I think we gotta look at the skill score, but I'm thinking, what's the skill score to 393, whether it's fall, winter, or spring? Right, I just wanna clarify.
Do you know Linda Road? Do you know Linda Road?
Wanda Rose,
Linda.
Linda Rose, that's my good friend.
She's my husband's grandma.
Is she? She teaches
We
at
call her
Ben
Nanny.
Franklin, and we work Saxon phonics program together and everything.
I love
She is
her.
a jewel. She is absolutely.
Miss the stadium.
If you look there, you can see under STAR, so I think that's where the miscommunication was. I think that was the only one. You can see it's a 393 or end of year. Yes, ma'am.
So on literacy first, can you go back to literacy first? Because I think it says passage 1, unless I was looking at the wrong, it says third grade passage 1.
50th percentile with 3s or 4s.
On passage 1, correct?
Yes. Okay. The vendors determine that.
Okay.
Dr. Barnett, can I just clarify, so once a third grader has a scale score of 393, then they have reached third grade proficiency?
Right.
Okay,
On STAR.
on STAR, okay.
But not, you can't do it at the beginning of the year. That's to be a That's what you said.
I just wanna make sure you knew where that was, you can access it. I'm sure all of you have used it
I
before.
mean,
The idea is once they get it sorted out,
yeah.
And there's a sample for you to send, the notification home to the parent. The interesting thing in the law though is even though a student may achieve proficiency, and then if you benchmark them later and they fall below, they have to go back on an APP again. So that's what the law says, and of course, ultimately, we wanna do what's best for students. Yes, ma'am.
With that 393 scaled score, does that have to be on a benchmark on STAR, or can that be at any point in time for progress monitoring or anything?
At any point in time.
Any point in time. Thank you.
There are multiple paths to promotion. We won't review every one of them, and one of the reasons that I made a copy of the quick guide with the good cause exemptions on it was so that you would have access to that. We won't talk about every one of those today. Of course, the RSA quick guide is on the website. It is a front and back document. I think it's a great resource. It is a concise way to look at the law, and it has been updated with the most recent information. Of course, the path that you should always look at first is, can the student score on the screening instrument at the proficient level? The second, we look at good cause exemptions. The third, you can look at some portfolios. And then the fourth would be the probationary promotion. So you see that the new criteria is unsatisfactory or limited knowledge. They are not eligible for automatic promotion unless, this is promotion path number 1. So I had a phone call from a district and they said, well, I have a third grader who's going to turn 12. What should we do? You know, there's at least four options of ways to look at helping that student become proficient. So that we really don't promote that we have 12-year-olds in third grade. Promotion path 2 is if they score on the 45th percentile on one of the 4 approved alternative standardized reading assessments. That, of course, is good cause exemption number 3. And those 4 assessments are listed in the rules. If you're looking for those and wanting to know where they are, they'll be in the rules, not in the law itself. I don't believe we have them anywhere else on the website, so you would go to the rules to find that. It's the SAT 10 ITDS in Terra Nova. Another way through promotion path 2 for good cause exemption is for the student to put together a student portfolio. That's an option for you. That has been changed slightly in the rules, and of course that will go into effect, as I said, on August 25th. So the student portfolio criteria is being updated to reflect the law. There were some things in it that were required that's not in the law anymore. And you will find that and the details on that again in the rules that are listed on the website. And of course, we have the other good cause exemptions listed there on your handout. So this gives you the student reading portfolio checklist that reflects what's in the new rules. Of course, you have to wait until August 25th for them to officially become in place. The third promotion path option is through the Summer Reading Academy program, and then once a student finishes that, they can demonstrate competency through a portfolio or through the reading assessment that we just listed.
I have a question on that real quick, just for clarification. Okay, so the Summer Reading Academy, really they have to complete it, but that is not a good cause exemption on its own.
Right.
They have to then,
You take the test.
off of that, still have a portfolio.
Yes.
Okay.
Or
right,
test.
yes.
Or pass with it.
It's
Sure,
just
okay,
test.
I just wanted to make sure it's not contingent on successful completion of,
No,
Yes,
on its own.
right.
parents want that.
How many of you, just out of interest, how many of you were not able to do the Summer Academy because of no money? That breaks my heart. It's one of those that is just a heartbreak, you know, and especially our kids that don't have food, you know, that come to school to get fed, but that's the reality. Make sure you communicate that to your legislators as they're talking about legislation for next year. The fourth possible promotion path is for the student to go through the probationary promotion committee. And that's the other student reading proficiency team that's listed in the law. As I said, they're both called SRPTs, but this one that looks at promotion. And you notice in this particular group, the certified reading specialist is required. Once they make a recommendation, it must be unanimous. Once they make the recommendation, it goes to the principal who must sign off on it and the superintendent.
So that's changed since last year, because last year they told us there would be no more probation or promotion after this year.
It stayed in the law. I don't know if they thought it was going to be taken out or not, but it stayed in the law. Of course, in your conversations with parents, and all of you in this room, raise your hand. I think you're veterans, you've been around a while. And it would be best to discuss the retention options prior to the spring semester. And if you're progress monitoring and benchmarking, it's best to have that conversation. This year, we're going to be going through the standard setting process. I know that the superintendent has put together a questionnaire that's going out to everyone across the state, looking at 3 different options for our assessment window. And in all of those, the 3rd grade reading is the very first test that's given. It still may be June or July before we get the results. It's the reality that we're dealing with this next year. So it's going to be super important that you have those conversations up front and be working with your parents to prepare them if you're going to be looking at retention. The required parent notification, there's an example on the webpage. Strategies that are listed in law that you work with with students that are retained or small group instruction, reduced teacher-student ratio, more frequent progress monitoring, etc. Summer reading academies. Those are all listed in law, and this is just a reflection of that. So for 16-17, the thing that's changing is just what we're calling. Well, of course, the students who score below the proficient level is going to be the new thing. Okay? And instead of calling them criterion reference tests, they're now called assessments administered. And probationary promotion is still there in the most recent iteration of the law. One of the questions that I had was, what about this transition from RSA to ACE? Because we had researched it, and there seemed to be a really nice dovetailing between the 2 laws, which would allow us, because I know you go from a reading teacher in 5th grade who may have 25 students. They may have as many as 75, I guess. But then you go to the middle school and you have 140 or 150 kids. And so what does that look like? Do we have to do an APP for every kid in middle school? But anyway, the ACE law and the RSA law dovetailed very nicely. We had it all figured out, and then you know what happened? ACE is gone. So I talked to our attorney, and the language that I have here, you see that it has quotation marks around it, and again, this will be available on the website for you. But our attorneys have issued the opinion that even though House Bill 3218 both repealed ACE and further amended the RSA statute, it did not remove the language that provides that students approved for probationary promotions must have their reading proficiency reviewed each year until they are read on grade level or transition to the requirements set forth by the Achieving Classroom Excellence Act. It was an oversight that's still in the RSA law. So in the meantime, these were approved by the governor and they go into effect that talks about that. The rule also has it. So although ACE was repealed, schools may provide secondary students the reading remediation required by the RSA through an ACE remediation plan. And you all know with ACE remediation, it had to be offered but not required, if you'll remember. So your middle school teachers, the app they don't have to have an app on every student. They will offer remediation for students. Are there questions about that? Is that as clear as mud?
It just has to be offered, it's not required that they do it.
It follows the ACE remediation
And that's
requirements.
beginning at what grade?
6th grade.
6th grade, okay.
It's the ACE plan for your district.
Yes.
Okay.
Questions about that? Okay. The rules changes really reflect, and this just is a disclaimer saying they aren't in place yet, they will be on August 25th, but the rule changes really are just reflecting what was changed in the law to make them up to date. And the SARP reporting will no longer be required that we've talked about. One of the things under good cause exemption 4, there's portfolio changes. Phonological awareness is focused on phonemic awareness, and spelling and writing is no longer required, so it's just updating, basing what's in the law. And good cause exemptions 5 and 6, it includes pre-kindergarten for academic reasons, and that there is the student reading proficiency team for first and second grader. And then in tier 2, the intensity and frequency varies based on the need of the student. Okay, and that actually reflects what's in all of the RTI research that we have on our website. I know there's been a requirement for a specific amount of time in the past, and that was done because there was a desire to make sure that those students that received help. I believe that our hope is that RSA has been around long enough now that districts are accustomed to providing what they need to, and they'll continue to progress monitor their students and do what is most effective for that particular student. And that change is reflected, like I said, in the RSA Quick Guide, and you can see that in the rules that are coming out. This one just identifies the student reading proficiency teams that have to be developed. And again, it's not to determine promotion or retention, as we said earlier. There's evidence-based strategies and interventions that are on our website for you to look at. There's the tier 1, which of course is the 90 minutes uninterrupted block of reading. Of course, during that reading time, we can be reading things about social studies or science. It doesn't have to just be English language arts reading. There's a way to infuse it in there. In tier 2, you're going to have the 90 minutes plus what is appropriate for that student at that particular time. That may change and vary throughout the school year. It may not be the same for all year. And tier 3 is still continues to be the 90 minutes daily plus an additional 45 to 60 minutes that are required. Question? So this identifies in tier 2 when you look at an intervention that you want to make sure you identify something that's evidence-based and that's systemic. You need to begin with word time, obviously, and decrease it as the student's skill level improves, as it should. They may shift into a different area that they need to work on. And begin with daily, and then decrease it if the student responds and has been having growth, showing growth. It's not a set time, it's based on the student's need. So progress monitoring is there. So the district responsibilities are to forecast prior plans, to submit RSA scores to parents, and to make sure that the information is there so that we have the proper transfer of student records. We get phone calls all the time in districts that they receive a student and they're not receiving the APP with that student. It's not in the student records, and it should be there. We have a whole team of people that are working with us. We're really sorry that Michelle Sprague, who's been instrumental in the RSA, has chosen to move on. We wish her well. She has been a great resource for me, and I know has been that way for all of you. But we do have a whole team that you can call. I'm ultimately the one that you can call. If I don't know the answer, I will find an answer for you and make sure that we are providing direct guidance. Sharon is new, and so she's learning. She knows early childhood, but she's going to learn RSA. We're trying to cross-train everyone. And we have 2 coordinators. Vicki Hale has been in the office for a really long time. If you have technical issues with your plan, she's the best one to call because she can help you with that. And then Timmy Spangler was a reach coach for a while and will be stepping in, and she will actually be here tomorrow to present with us on RSA. So I appreciate your patience and your standing in this room. That's wonderful. And if you have any questions, I would be happy to take it. It's for the good of everyone. Any questions?
Is the slideshow going to be available through the State Department website?
It will be. They're supposed to go up. I'm not sure when, but yes, it will be. Any other general questions? If not, we'll be around for specific questions afterwards. You all have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Here are the added glances. If you did not get this one.
Dr. Bonnet. I have.
Sorry.
You're just saying thank you. She got the order. Mainly, I was just looking for her.
Okay, thank you. I am gonna do
Thanks, several.
Have a great day.
Oh, you too.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll do that then. Okay, thank you.
That was it?
Is there a business card or anything?
They gave a thing about, let me show it to you. It's easier to show you than that. They gave this one. She gave this one. This is just a free, she talked about, this is Doug Fisher, and then she gave her card. Gave us a card, in case we need to call her. Thank you very much. You're welcome.
Sharon?
We could pull that off real well.
Sharon? I think Desiree has one.
So I was gonna send him that.
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
I wonder if it was showing there. But then